heartbreaking to hear my parents fighting, and that's why I was never too unhappy when he left to go back to his mother's house. I didn't like my father's mother, because she was as mean and bitter as he was. I did not know the rest of his family well enough to know if they were like that too. His family members did not like my mother and rarely came to see us. On the rare occasion when we visited his mother's home, my grandmother asked him in front of us about other women that he spent time with, and she made it a point to tell us how awful our mother was, even when our mother was present. I never understood that, because my mother was our rock. She was the backbone of our family, and was the person who made sure we had what few clothes and food we did have. I don't know why my mother married my dad. Neither of their families approved of the match. But in the early years, they had a good life near my mother's family in Alexandria. They had a nice home, 4 children, and were in love. Then an earthquake hit, and everything they had was reduced to rubble. My mom and dad did not have the mental strength to move on from that level of disaster, for they never got their lives back together after that. Life began to spiral downward, and by the time I came along on September 29th, 1989, my family was living in poverty in a slum. When I was young, my mother was constantly sick, tired, and pregnant. I was later diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, RA, when I was in my teens, and I think my mother may have had it too, because genetics play a big part in who ends up with RA. Rheumatoid arthritis is a long-term autoimmune disease that causes inflammation of the joints and surrounding tissues. Wrists, fingers, knees, feet, and ankles are most commonly affected, but RA can affect organs too. The disease begins slowly, usually with minor joint pain, stiffness, and fatigue. Morning stiffness is common, and joints may feel warm, tender, and stiff when not used for a while. It is not an easy disease to live with, and it must have been even harder for my mother, who had few resources and who had to care for her many children. In Egypt, many children do not go to school. It is legal there for children to stop school and begin work when they are 14 years old. Only families that need money force their children to begin working at that age, but the families that struggle the most don't send their kids to school at all. We were one of those families. I never went to school and never learned to read or write. I did both much later in life, after I was freed. I had 4 younger siblings, and my role in the family was to care for them while my parents worked. To my knowledge, only one of my sisters ever attended school. She was the 4th child in our family, and my mother's parents were raising her. Except during holidays, I never saw her. This sister led a completely different life from the rest of us. She even went to college, which was unheard of for people of our status in Egypt. I am not sure why this sister lived with our grandparents, but it might be because she was the youngest of my parents' 4 children when the earthquake hit. Maybe my grandparents offered to take her temporarily to help out while my parents got back on their feet, and it turned into a more permanent arrangement. The 2 oldest of my siblings were twin girls. One twin left early on to get married, and I never saw much of her after that. It was as if she jumped at her first opportunity to escape our family. The other twin, Zara, was the wild child in our family. She was always getting into trouble, which may have been why my parents sent her to work for a wealthy family who lived several hours away. When it came to my brothers, I'm not sure what they did. I know that some of my older brothers went to school because they got up every morning, gathered their books, and walked to the school that was not too far from our house. At least I think that's what they did most days. Other days they could have had jobs or have been carousing on a street corner somewhere. I wish I had thought to ask my brothers to teach me to read and write, but for whatever reason,